Pure Imagination is out. I am so excited to share this body of work with you. The question is though, why? Why was it released? Why did it need to come out now? Why? It felt like the perfect time to say goodbye to a chapter of my life that had been stewing and marinating for a long time. Felt like it was a complete thought. The impetus behind this album is exploring what it means to dream and imagine in adulthood. And especially early adulthood, because that's the stage of life that I find myself in. Because of COVID, and because of all of these things that shut down all of our lives, especially the entertainment industry, I had to reassess a lot of things. And what I had been shooting for and dreaming about when I first started my undergrad wasn't an option anymore. And there was no support to make that an option. So I had to reassess and go in different directions. And then suddenly I'm doing voiceover, and suddenly that has become extremely lucrative. And it allows me to pursue music jointly because it's in the same software, it's in the same recording studio, it works hand in hand. So I was like, oh, I still have freedom to do music. But what do I do with that? Because I had to reassess so much, I was like, okay, well, what do I dream for now? Because my last dream didn't work out, and I don't want to dream for the wrong thing again, because that was awful. That was awful before I reassessed, when I realized this isn't going to happen. That's an awful feeling. I don't know how to make goals anymore. I've lost my confidence in being able to see the future, because I know I'm not going to have an accurate view. How do you do something that you know you aren't going to be right about? You know it's going to be something different. And I had, a pride buildup perhaps that prevented me from even making a go of it. Voiceover continued to grow, and suddenly I was able to move out of my parents' house, and I was like, okay, where am I going to go? And I had the hardest time trying to figure out where that was going to be. Over a year or so, I gained the confidence back to dream big. Because for a while, I wasn't thinking about moving abroad. In fact, I was like, I would love to do that one day, probably not all the way in Australia again, but maybe in like London or something like that, but like not now. Not after a global pandemic. My gosh, how stupid would that be? But then I was like looking at other places around the US, and I was like, man, all of these places would be a big move. And if I'm gonna do that big of a move, I might as well go somewhere that I'm really excited about. Suddenly, I remember my mom, after I came back from a viewing when I was looking at places around Nashville, to just be like, I just need to get out of my parents' house. And I was just really melancholy and brooding about it. And she was like, Talon, if you want to go to London, go to London. It kind of caught me off guard because I hadn't explicitly said I wanted to go to London. It was just like, oh, I'd love to go somewhere like that. I have been watching a lot of BBC shows like Peaky Blinders and The Crown and Downton Abbey and the Harlan Coben mysteries. I just felt engrossed in this British culture and British entertainment. I was so mesmerized by it. By the actors, by the stories, by the concepts, by the music. It was like, if there is anywhere where I felt like my artistry would fit in, where I could get excited about the community of entertainers and artists, it would be London. And it became clear where I needed to go. This album is basically the story of that and finding your ability to dream again and what that feels like. As far as like aesthetic theme goes, to tie all this together, I wanted it to be the deep indigos and the deep purples of space, because to me that's what I associate with dreams. Perhaps because of the phrase, shoot for the moon, you might just land among the stars. When you dream, it feels so vast and unknowable and yet exciting and beautiful. And it could be absolutely anything, and it could go absolutely anywhere. That is what I tried to pull from sonically and thematically, and also in lyrics of the actual songs. There's references to space, there's references to dreaming and to imagination. So let's get to it. I'm going to do a bit of a track by track of these 12 songs, tell you a little bit about what each song is supposed to represent. Let's start with track 1, Pure Imagination. This is a cover, and this is the first cover I've released on an album. I've done a few Christmas songs and stuff like that, but this was Pure Imagination, one of my earliest favorite songs. I actually remember during the period of time where I didn't think I was a songwriter when I was like 6 or 7, but I was writing little things all the time, but I was like, this doesn't make me a songwriter. But I remember I had a songbook and I wrote the lyrics to Pure Imagination down, or what I thought they were, because I didn't have access to the internet then. And I was just like, okay, I think this is what he's saying, and was just basing it off of my memory. And I wrote these lines down in this songbook. It was the only cover, I guess, that I had written down in that first book. I didn't remember that until I started working on this cover again, and I was like, man, I think that might have been my first favorite song. So to bring it back like this, from people's comments as well, this song brings such a heavy feeling of nostalgia, and yet also of hope and new beginnings. And I think that perfectly represented what it feels like to begin a new dream, to start that process again, to have pure imagination. You know, it's something that you felt before when you were a kid, but now it's moving into a more mature, a more fully realized space. When I was arranging this, I kept the same format that the original did. So I wanted to keep it absolutely recognizable as the song that it was, but then also adding the thematic things that I was interweaving throughout the whole album. So like there are little like chiming sounds that made me think of stars, so it was almost like we were beginning our journey, our expedition into space. All of the background vocals are very introspective to me, so they sound really big, but then it's all kind of one voice, and so it feels like it's all going on in your brain. I wanted to sing this, like starting very intimately and very conversationally, and then getting into a bigger, grander space when you're really leaning into what the dream is supposed to be. So yeah, it was a perfect way to start this album, and I'm so blessed and honored to be able to have my cover of Pure Imagination in the mix out in the world now. And then track 2 is Individual, and this is where, okay, you've got your dream, you're going for it, and you're asserting your confidence. We're out of college now, we're out of training, we're out of school. We know who we are. We know how we fit in. We just need to know where to go. But as far as who we are as people, we've got that down. And so being able to say, hey, this is who I am. This is me being individual. And that's a big part of my story. It's what I have felt most passion about fighting consistently throughout my life, is being pigeonholed in a certain place and being relegated to be in this little box, because that automatically as a creative makes me want to think outside the box. That's just what happens. This song was really fun. I wrote it during COVID. It was just vacillating between A minor and B minor, and then we had like a little interlude that brings around the key center and all of that, but it's really just A minor and B minor, but it doesn't sound minor, which I thought was so fascinating. The majority, 90% of the song, I would say, is just 2 minor chords back and forth, and yet it's so fun, it's so bouncy, it's so like, hey, here we are. So the irony of that was not lost on me. My favorite line in this song is, "You may take offense, none is meant, I assure you, it's just circumstance that our stars don't align." So again, using the star theme to get across, hey, because I'm being individual, that might rub you the wrong way. It might rub some people the wrong way. But that doesn't mean that I'm attacking you. It just means that I'm being me. That is an important part, I think, in the beginning of this dream journey, to be able to state who we are. This is where we are coming from. And then we move into the next song, which is Heart's Mirage, which was the first single on this album, and honestly I wasn't sure it was going to be on this album because it was released so far in advance, a year and a half before the rest of the album followed, and I wasn't sure. It's like, oh, does it still fit with the mix? And it did, especially at the beginning, because it was also a reiteration of what our dream means in a more love interesty and romantic way. Especially in early adulthood, where, you know, you're out of school, you're thinking, you know, I'm really ambitious with my career, and I want to do big things, and I have great passion for being able to serve the world. But then also, I would love to find my person. I really want that. And although it doesn't seem to be the right time now because of everything else going on, or there's no valid suitors around, I want that. And keeping that dream alive was very important to me because for anyone who is more type A and is really, really self-motivated, you can distract yourself very easily. And to keep this dream alive in my heart was very important, to have this heart's mirage. And I had never heard a song about this before. The metaphor of Mirage is one of my favorite ones I've ever written. This song is very personal to me. I've lived every part of this song, whereas with other songs on this album, there's a bit of extended reality, or it's something that I saw one of my friends go through, or something like that. But this one is mine. It's my heart's song. And I love it so much. And the visual I had in my head, which is so ironic now, is the scene at the end of the Pride and Prejudice movie with Keira Knightley, when Mr. Darcy is striding through the tall grass with his cape robe thing billowing behind him and the wind's in his hair, and Kira's like, with her open mouth face, which is beautiful, and it's just the most beautiful, lovely scene, and nothing need be spoken. And that was the visual I had in my head. And so it was amazing to be able to release this song initially while I was living in the south of England, where that landscape was so near to me, and I was in the same country as where that story was supposed to have taken place. It was an amazing full circle moment. So that being said, I wanted it to have the string element. I wanted it to be minimal, but then also classic and timeless in a way that the love of your life would be. And then I also added some like night sounds and crickets and stuff at the beginning, which it just felt like it still lent to the theme of space and intimate moments with your dreams and your imaginings. Then we move on to Anomaly, which I have talked a lot about Anomaly. I won't talk too much about that now, but I will say that it was important to have on this album because after we have stated our intent to imagine, our intent to create the dream, and stated who we are as people, as individuals, and also reiterated that love is really important, an important part of this human journey, and we want to be a part of it. Anomaly is when it's like, oh, this could all be happening. Finally be happening after all the disappointments of the dreams of the past. Anomaly is when, okay, whoa, this could be happening. Oh my goodness. And we're jumping off the walls and we're loving life and just absorbing everything from it. And then there's Panorama. And Panorama is our first little chink in the armor. It's the first disillusionment moment where some jadedness starts to creep its way in. And it's still upbeat. It's still a bit of a bop in areas, but it's way different than everything else that's come before it on the album. There is not a cinematic bone in this song's body, which to me represented really well what it's like to have that sort of curveball thrown at you when you think you know what's going to happen in the dream, in the journey. And then Panorama. Panorama. This song is actually the oldest one on the album. I wrote it when I was in Australia. It was a class project for one of my music classes. And I got a pretty good grade on it, I must say. I weaved as many metaphors into this song as I think I ever have in any of my others, because it's talking about getting older and starting to question if you've lived your life the right way, if you have maybe sloughed off reason and responsibility and, you know, all the things that come with growing older a bit too quickly. And the chorus of this song is, I don't remember how'd we get so far away from where we left off yesterday. While falling from heaven, maybe I enjoyed the ride, but all I got was a blurry panorama. Panorama was, again, one of those words that I just thought was so musical and needed to have its own song. So I had filed that away and was able to pull it out for this assignment. And I loved the song so much at the time because it really challenged my piano playing. It was, again, one that I chose the piano chords before the song concept. So that was really fun to challenge myself in that way. And I knew that I wanted my dad to put all the guitar on it and that it needed to be sort of this like folk rock vibe, and then also having the a cappella moments at the beginning and the end were a sort of homage to Seven Bridges Road by the Eagles. So really calling on that bit of nostalgia, but then also something completely new that's not like anything else on the album to throw you for a loop. Then we had the gut punch, the first gut punch, which is Wading Through the Memories. And this is another real personal one, like Heart's Mirage, where I was just writing down what I was feeling at the moment. And it's funny that the song I placed right before it is Panorama, talking about taking pictures, because Wading Through the Memories came from what was happening in my real life, that I was just spending hours in my camera roll on my phone. After I had come back to the UK after spending Christmas with my parents, I was like, oh, this is what it feels like to have a family around again. And coming back where they aren't there, and they aren't even near, they aren't even on the same continent, you start to question, okay, did I make the right choice here? Is it more important for me to have my family near? Or is it more important to follow the dream? Which I know I'm where I need to be to make that happen. But the love of my family, I crave that so much, and the fact that I'm not near them, is that taking too much out of me? So just posing that question was really important, and it's really important, I think, in everyone's dream journey and their ambition journey, where they have to reassess, okay, is this worth it? Is it worth it? This one, I think, thematically most resonates with the space theme of the album. I wanted it to be very minimalistic, kind of like you're traveling through a void, but then also really dense in some areas with the background vocals and the harmonic moments. It's like, oh my gosh, this is almost all-consuming, and yet there's nothing here. It's so sparse, it's so minimalistic. And that's what this part of space I wanted it to be like, where we're barreling through, it's Newton's third law all the way to the end, an object in motion. We are full steam ahead, and we're just throwing out the question, was this the right decision? Was it? Not like we can stop, but was it the right decision? Production-wise, with this one, I was having fun with reverbs, and I found something called inverted reverb, where basically it takes a long reverb and reverses it. And so it almost feels like, I'll fly, you know, it's like it happens right after that, and then like crescendos weirdly, and then stops. It's metaphorically, it kind of takes us to like looking back at things, and then it hitting you like this nostalgia. You're in this cycle of looking back at what things used to be like, and if it was better then, and it keeps like punching you in the face. And then the song that comes after that, after we have had our gut punch, and that wasn't really resolved, but we've asked the question, Tonedeaf happens. I was so happy with the lines that I was able to weasel in here. It's definitely a more musical theater type song, very vocal led. I almost made it just a cappella, but then I missed the piano chords because there's some really cool piano chords. So I wanted to keep the piano in there, but everything else is very vocal led, because it's a song about the person in your life or in your conversation that is the most obnoxious without any reason to be. They just think they have to say and comment on everything that is said or commented on. And they don't take any time to read the room. They don't take any time to consider what someone might need to hear, or that person's personality, or really take any time at all. They're just like, I'm gonna drop this in here, whether it makes any sense or has any place here or not. And I find those people so frustrating. And I wrote this song during COVID, and there was a lot of that happening, where it felt like people just didn't care anymore. They were responding for their own pride. They were responding just to get their opinion out there, to say something. And I had wanted to write a song called Tonedeaf for a while, because I just thought that was so ironic to have a song about being tone deaf. Yeah. I wanted it. One of my favorite lines in this song is, "What happened to being a decent human? What happened to reading the room? But you always want to be winning. But the losers will dance on your grave. Ah. It was just a cool harmonic moment, and then also just singing, what happened to being a decent human? What happened? What happened to reading the room? Why do we all just feel like we have to say everything on our brains all the time? As far as it fits into the album narrative, it's that moment where we've come from wading through the memories, like, we might not be in the right place, but in Tonedeaf, it's like we are continuing to move forward. I also wanted this song to be on the album because it's a moment where the people that don't always get the say, they wait for someone else to be done speaking before they say anything. It was a moment for them to pipe up and be like, hey, what you are saying has no place in this conversation. Quit it. You're being obnoxious and we're tired of it. We're tired of it. You've got to quit. You've got to learn how to converse more civilly here. Is a big moment for people like that. And to also kind of reassert a bit of who we are and standing up to conflict and standing up to struggle is a big moment when you're trying to come back from a low moment, like wading through the memories. Tonedeaf is fun. I hope you get enjoyment from it. I certainly do. And then the next song is Conflict of Interest. And Conflict of Interest is just sort of a sigh of exasperation. You've kind of got some interest from a romantic suitor, maybe, something like that, but you're not sure. And you're hearkening back to Pure Imagination, to Heart's Mirage, and you're like, is this it? Is this perhaps could be what I was talking about, an anomaly, or it could perhaps be Heart's Mirage, but I'm not sure. And I'm tired of the mind games. I'm tired of this battle of wits that seems to be happening all the time. I structured this song like just a traditional jazz swing tune. Some of those old standards that are just so forward with their declarations of love, and it's so obvious who they're talking about. And it's like, oh, can't this person, like, can't we just learn from these? Can we just do what they did? And not have it be so ambiguous and sort of like question mark, question mark. But then I also had in the background vocals the shoop, shoo-ah-da-doo, shoop, shoo-ah-da-doo, which is very 60s. So it was then like, okay, if we aren't going to do what they did in the 30s and 40s with the swing tune, maybe we can learn from the 60s, like She Loves You, yeah, 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 and all of those shoo-ah-da-doo songs that are, again, very forward with their declarations of love. It's a fun song. I have a scat moment in it, which is, it's just one of my favorite things. But then also in the narrative of the album is like, gosh, why can't it be easier? Why does it always have to be a battle when it could potentially be what I've been dreaming of, but it's not. It's more of a struggle. Because then, once that thought is posed, once we've aired our grievances with Conflict of Interest, we move into the lowest part of the album, emotionally, with Anomaly Reprise. And this song, of course, was written at the same time as Anomaly full version, because, kind of like with Buffering, if you remember, I had an upbeat idea and a ballad idea for Buffering, and with Buffering I chose the ballad idea. But with Anomaly, I chose the upbeat idea. But when I was writing the chorus, I was like, okay, should it be maybe I'm the anomaly or maybe it's an anomaly? And when I sang through maybe I'm an anomaly in the upbeat version, it didn't quite fit. I'm like, oh no, that sounds like more of a jab. That sounds like more melancholy. And then I started thinking about maybe I'm the anomaly and how I feel like that sometimes. And sometimes I love being an anomaly, and sometimes it feels like the most solitary existence on earth. So this song was almost like a diary entry, thinking about hearkening back to Anomaly and being like, oh, maybe it was the bad kind of anomaly. Because I still have the dream of Heart's Mirage within me, but my life hasn't taken the same direction that so many other people's in my life have. They're in a completely new stage of life, you know, married, having families, maybe having their second kid, buying houses, really settling down. And even though I have no regrets, even though there hasn't been a moment where I have turned something down that I shouldn't have, it makes you wonder, you know, maybe I'm the anomaly. Maybe I'm the only one being left behind. Maybe I'm the anomaly. Isn't there someone out there who could be mine? So yeah, it was a bit of a pity party, but it felt important to say out loud. But only once. I didn't want to do a full song with this because it was like a diary entry. The power in it only being said once was enough. Because then I didn't want to leave that moment because I don't think that's quite realistic to be like, oh, maybe I'm the anomaly and then we needed to stay there, but it needed to be a different hue of melancholy where you don't know how to regain your joy and your confidence, and you're trying desperately not to lose your confidence in the dream again. Then we move into sad song. This song was one of the last ones written for the album because I had a friend who was listening to all my music and was like, you need more sad songs. And of course he hadn't heard Anomaly Reprise, he hadn't heard Wading Through the Memories, and I was like, I have plenty of sad music. But just to be kind of like, whatever, I was like, okay, fine, I'll write a sad song, and just named it Sad Song. But I ended up having more to say, and I came up with these piano chord changes that I just absolutely loved, and they fit where I was in that moment. Sad Song was born. And again, I wanted it to be minimalistic, but in a different way from Wading Through the Memories and Anomaly Reprise. It still needed a few background vocals, but a little different. It has a completely different reverb and vocal processing on it to where it just sounds humidified in a way, where I wanted sort of that humid feeling with Heart's Mirage, with the crickets and with how I was singing it. A sad song is almost a bit stale, how it starts. It's like a stale humidity, if that makes any sense. It's just like your day-to-day is stuck. It's plateauing again. I thought it was so important to have a song like this, to create a space to express the sadness, the disappointment, the discouragement, and not necessarily specifically call out things, but to just describe what it's like to live with these things and then to say, I'm sad. I'm gonna sing this sad song, if only for myself. No one else has to hear it. I don't need to shout it from the rooftops, but I'm gonna sing this sad song. It's good for my health. So this song creates that space, I hope, to have a moment to just breathe. Because I don't know about you, but when I'm like really happy or really energetic, I have a hard time breathing, taking those deep breaths. But what I think is so important about having those low energy melancholy moments is you breathe. You breathe deeply and you let out the roars and the long suspended notes, which one of my favorite parts to sing of sad song is, I'm gonna sing. And just that release that comes from holding a note that long and moving through the different vocal tones and timbres. It's like a weep, a sob, which again is so important for us to express. And then also this song offers up a prayer to re-energize the dream, to show me, God, the silver lining to this moment. Because I don't want to live in depression. I don't want this to be the long-term way to live. This is just a melancholy moment. Because then we go to end of the dream. We've had all of these moments leading up to it. We've had our highs and our lows and our disappointments and our disillusionments and then our uplifting moments. And suddenly out of nowhere, creeping up from the side of the panning field in the stereo, we have end of the dream. Which is, again, something completely different from the rest of the album. I did dip a little bit of my toe in EDM, but my style of EDM. And this song is like the best part of space. If we go back to the theme of the album again, is space. The galaxy, the colors, the big dense parts of space where you can't really pick one out of the mix. And that's what I wanted this to be like. If you have read the ACOTAR series, A Court of Thorns and Roses, this is the music I think would be played in Valaris. This is the music of the Night Court. Or what my interpretation of it would be. I even patterned the lyrical choices and the narrative of this song based off of A Court of Mist and Fury and A Court of Wings and Ruin, where they were the answers to each other's dreams, and that soulmate bond was solidified. This song was definitely the most difficult to produce. It was a different production style, and it was difficult to sing. I don't sing in an EDM style, so making sure that my vibrato didn't get in the way, that it wasn't too theatrical, that it was more straight-toned, more conversational in places, but then also more ethereal. It was a fun challenge, and not so fun challenge at times. I definitely spent the most time production-wise on this song. I loved the outcome, and I have danced to this song more than any of the other ones, and just had a great time constructing the background vocal arrangements, having a little bit of an homage to the Everly Brothers song Dream in the background vocals. And then by nature of the title, you would think that this would be the end of the album as well as the end of the dream. But no. No, it's not the end. I thought it was also important to have sort of a postscript, a PS, called Stealin Time. And this worked to me after End of the Dream because it was almost the conclusion to the album, especially how it starts. It starts kind of snarky. If I hear "Where Did the Time Go" one more time, I'm gonna throw up. I swear. So again, some of those lines and I was like, I can't believe I was able to get this into a song. It's kind of like a comment about the whole album in general. Yes, we've told this story, and this is like the narrator of the album almost, saying, while we are going through these dreams, while we are on each of our journeys, we need to make sure that we are stealing time to spend with those we love, and that we're not so ambition-based that we can't drop out of the quantization sometimes. And what I mean by quantization is everything has to fit right within the metronome. This song was very fun because I mixed up the tempos a lot, but it still worked. Somehow it worked, and I can't quite music theory-wise explain why it worked, but it did. I had to have this song be the end of the album, because at first I had Stealin Time before End of the Dream, but because the tempo of Stealin Time at the end is so fast, I think it's like 161, to then go to End of the Dream, which is I think at 120, even though it's still fast, it felt like a big energy drop from Stealin Time, and I'm like, oh, End of the Dream can't be an energy drop, so that's why I switched them production-wise. But then it also made sense conceptually, because Stealin Time is just like the counterpoint for the whole album. It's like, yes, follow your dreams, but steal some time along the way. And I loved being able to do that. I loved being able to show that musically, and then also just with a vibey song that, you know, it's not as lyrically dense as something like Heart's Mirage or Panorama, but I think it has just as poignant a point. We're stealing time back from ourselves. Stealing time, put the list back on the shelf. The to-do list back on the shelf. Stealing time from what I thought I knew. Stealing time to spend with you. That's a song I need to hear a lot, to just remember to have fun and to carve out time in the present, to not always be so future-oriented and so future-minded that I don't remember that the only moment I'm guaranteed is the one I'm in right now. So, it has brought me so much joy to talk you through this album and to talk you through all the concepts that went into it. I hope you enjoy. I hope that it inspires and allows you to maybe assess where you are in your own dream journey, and perhaps can pull you out of the Wading Through the Memory or the Anomaly Reprise or sad song moments into the End of the Dream moments, into the Stealin Time or Anomaly moments. So I love you guys so much. Thank you for listening. If you haven't yet, go listen now and stay tuned for what comes next.